This episode of The Rookie Hunter is sponsored by North Arm Knives. North Arm Knives are handcrafted and sold directly through a father and son team right here in British Columbia. Choose from a selection of outdoor knives, kitchen knives, and their brand new folding knife from northarmknives.com. They ship internationally and guarantee all their work. Callie and I use their products and give them our stamp of approval. Go to northarmknives.com. Hey guys, welcome to episode 51. Today on the show we have Dylan Eyers from Eat Wild. Eat Wild is all kinds of great things, including training and workshops for folks who have never hunted before, and a focus on bigger centers such as Vancouver, where he's from. He also has the Eat Wild app, which is brand new and available on all devices. The app is pretty damn cool, actually. You have the ability to download videos and watch them offline, and they're instructional videos. So if there's something you're not too confident doing, say field dressing an animal for the first time, you can save the video to your phone, and when you finally get a deer on the ground, you're going to have the confidence of checking in, watching a quick video while you field dress an animal for the first time. That would have been helpful for Kelly and I the first time we did it. So it's a cool app. There's packing list, all kinds of good stuff. Make sure you go and download that app, and it is available for free. Dylan is also the host of the Eat Wild podcast on iTunes, so make sure you subscribe to that one. The Rookie Hunter store is back in action, and we're shipping shirts internationally. Lots of guys from the US asking if they would be able to get a t-shirt, and we couldn't do it before, but we can now. So make sure you head over to therookihunter.com, click on the store tab, and get yourself a t-shirt that supports the show, and we very much appreciate it. One more thing, Kelly and I have proposed a challenge to each other, which you may have heard on the last episode, which was to run a certain amount of kilometers in a 30-day period. So the 30-day beer run, as we're now calling it, has officially started, and we're hoping you guys will join along. So you can download the Nike Run Club app, and you can add us as friends. So all you have to do is search for Rookie Hunter Mike, Rookie Hunter Kelly, and you can race against us. It doesn't matter what part of the world you're in. So we think it's going to be a lot of fun, and just encouraging people to stay in shape. You've come this far in the season. You've prepared for it all year. It's getting darker. It's getting colder, but might as well keep yourself in shape and do some running with us. So yeah, I hope you guys join us for that one. Either way, it's going to be a lot of fun for us to do it. Let's get into this episode. Sit back, relax, crack a cold beer, and enjoy episode 51 with Dylan Eyers from Eat Wild.
When we got back, we all started thinking, well, maybe we should buy some horses or something like that. And then I've talked to some people, and they're like, no, a lot of the guides we know don't even hunt with horses when they're not guiding, because it's just a lot of work, and
it's totally
true for everybody. But
well, you gotta love horses. But on that trip we went, I had this dream of like riding. I've done exactly what you guys have done. Like gone in like. Probably a bit too heavy, and had some vision of where I was going to get to, and didn't get even close.
There,
and then we're like, oh, horses are the answer. So I had a romantic idea of like hunting with horses, but in the end, when we actually, even if you're really good with horses, there's still a ton to do with horses every day. Yeah. So you got to water them, you got to feed them, you got to take care of them, you got to tie them up, you got to, and then if you want to go anywhere with a horse, it's not just, you can't just like grab a horse, saddle them up, head out in the morning. You actually got to like take two with you. Because you're gonna go anywhere, you got to take two, and they don't really like leaving the rest of the herd behind. So you might take a couple up to a hill and spot some sheep, and then maybe you'll go after something, and then you come back to get your horses. You had them tied to some tree. Well, the tree's gone now, and it's been dragged down all the way back to camp, so the horses can be with their buddies. Like,
nice.
Yeah, just one disaster after another. So I don't know. Out of that hunt, I got to hunt for elk for about 2 hours, and that was it. Like we hunted first day for an hour. It was too hot to shoot the elk. Had a couple elk come in, couldn't shoot them. Waited around, it was super hot, dealt with horses, chased horses, and then came back, and finally temperatures dropped, and called a couple elk in, shot an elk, and then packed the elk down the hill. I didn't actually realize how I actually packed the elk down the hill before Larry got there with the horses. He's like, why'd you pack it down? They just like walk the horses up there. I'm like, really? Horses can walk up here? I was like, that's interesting. So lots of learning, I guess.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good. Well, we've been rolling for a bit here, so Dylan, welcome to the brand new podcast studio, the first guest we've had in here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, guys. I'm your neighbor here for a month. And, so it's kind of a treat to pop in and see your studio. It's a nice space.
It's coming together. Yeah.
It's coming together. You got a big old buck on the wall. That's great.
Yeah.
It's a little cozier than the last one too, which is nice.
Definitely.
I like the furniture too. It's pretty plush.
Yeah.
Going on your couch here.
Yeah, we mentioned that in the last episode.
Yeah,
it's
what-
like a
what do you
1969 vintage coach Mike has over
I
here.
think it's a 1962.
Is this like
Jesus.
taupe? Would you call it taupe or would you?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know.
Purpley thing. It's great. You just got to come up with a name for this thing.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. The last studio, I had these bright green couches. They were pretty old too, but I figured the studio needed something different, so we keep the vintage theme going. You got to have a good sofa in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on. I like it. Yeah, my buddy's studio is called Old Sofa Music, so it started around the sofa had a name.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
That's great.
right on. Anyways, yeah. So hey, thanks for having me. And my name's Dylan, and I guess I started this project called Eat Wild about 5 years ago, I think, maybe even 6 now. Maybe this is the 6th hunting season that we've done.
Nice.
And yeah, the program is basically I'm based in Vancouver, and that's where I grew up, and the program is just designed to sort of support new hunters to find their way to becoming successful, ethical hunters and safe hunters, and just something that happened. Like I guess I grew up hunting, and I was like I grew up in Vancouver. There was like no other kids hunted in Vancouver, so a bit of an out. I felt like a bit of an outcast. But or just my passion was there. Anyways, I loved my dad took me hunting, and he had a lot of amazing friends that were all excellent hunters and very passionate, dedicated conservationists and hunters. So I kind of grew up in this great community of hunters, and so it was a big part of me growing up, and in my teenage years and stuff. I really valued that. But when I like sort of reflected on the rest of my world, it just wasn't a big part of our community, our culture.
Right.
Being a kid in Kerrisdale in Vancouver, and then even when I went to university, even in Prince George where I went to university, it wasn't it was hard to find like-minded people that were kind of passionate about it.
Mm-hmm.
But about maybe 8-10 years ago, like people started asking me about my experience as a hunter, and like I had friends who I'd be at a show, checking out some music, and somebody was like, hey, you're the hunter guy, like you know how to hunt, and I've been like growing vegetables like on my back porch, and it was going really well, but I want to I'm digging this whole organic thing, but I want to get some meat as well, and I was thinking maybe I could get it myself, and so that conversation kept happening, and when I found myself, I found a lot more of my buddies that I was fishing with and hanging with were transitioning, like they were like kind of getting interested in hunting, and kind of that, but maybe in their late 20s, early 30s, and they were kind of getting interested. So I was mentoring a lot of my pals, and just sort of seeing that there was something, like maybe there was some type of movement happening where there's you guys are part of it. I mean, you guys, and you guys are from the Coonies, I think, a little bit. So,
originally, yeah.
But I mean, you're seeing it probably here as well. We're just, adult professional people are like, hey, I want to make different decisions around where my meat's coming from, and
for sure.
And but then, you have this idea. I want to learn how to hunt, but then where do you go next to figure it out? So, anyways, that's a long answer to. So we put together a bunch of workshops and classes, and to help sort of build the foundation for people to learn from, and to build some confidence and build some skills. There's also a big component too of trying to build some community around sort of this creating community, so that people who are coming from this sort of like-minded place and can sort of get together and have dinner parties together, or have a sausage party together.
Very
and
cool.
Make it a very accessible landing place for a non-hunter to become a hunter.
Yeah.
That's where it started.
That's pretty cool, man. It's funny. We've said this before, but Kelly and I, when we started this podcast, we felt like we were sort of unique in getting into hunting later in life and stuff like that. But as we start to do this, you start to hear from guys and stuff like that, and you realize there's hundreds and hundreds of guys out there that are all starting later in life. We've heard from guys like in their late 50s who are just getting into it and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool, man. And I think it is the whole food movement. People just want to know where their stuff's coming from. And I think there is a progression of starting with a garden and stuff like that, and then getting hooked on, growing organic vegetables from home, and then, wanting to get things closer and closer to home as far as where all your food's coming from. And it's a pretty rewarding thing. So it's neat to see that movement. And now that people know that Kelly and I hunt, they're starting to ask us a lot of questions, and it's pretty cool to be able to share that info with people and see the passion start to burn in their eyes a little bit too. So I'd imagine teaching these courses is probably a pretty rewarding thing for you to do.
Yeah, for sure. Like the coolest part for me is that like it's kind of we have there's been a lot of cool, interesting people who've come through the program, and you've been able to connect with them, and when they come back and do other workshops, and then they become your friends, really. But
right.
But just these interesting people that become part of your life, and as you get older, like I'm 41 now, and like a lot of my pals have like had babies and families, and that becomes their that becomes what's going on, and so it's kind of cool to be like part of this growing community of people, and being being able to help people and build these connections, and the interesting thing is it's not like it's really a unique group of people that are coming to hunting, and it's like you say, Mike, like these are people who are very thoughtful in their approach to food, and so that gives me a lot of common ground with these folks. So they're very interested in food and want to take responsibility for it, and are willing to work for it, and so if you take that subsection of people out of society, it actually is a really great filter. So you get these really cool cross section of folks. So one of the things that I reflect on, and I mean, building the community is one thing, but also just it's really neat to see our hunting community growing in that growing in that direction. So we've got sort of this, it's just a different type of person that's coming to it, and they can advocate for hunting and conservation with different people. They have a different audience when they step out of it. When they get back from the hunting trip, they come back to a different community of folks, and they can advocate and share their stories and reflect on, why they hunt. And I think that just really gets hunting into, like, it just gets new arteries for people to understand.
Yeah, for sure.
Why we hunt and what it's all about, and the benefits to how we choose to eat our food, and how we connect with nature. And so that's really what I think is kind of neat about this growth in what we're seeing in new hunters. It's not just like daughters and sons of traditional hunters that are buying their hunting license and going hunting with their uncles and dads and aunts. It's a whole new breed of people, and it's doctors and lawyers and dentists and kind of influencers in the city and in Kelowna and these places where, like, where it comes down to it, like, people who influence politics are the folks who are in those centers, and those folks who are those influencers in society. And it's kind of cool that there's now you can sort of point to a lot of people who are new hunters that are in those communities and having an influence, which I think is kind of a cool thing to see.
Yeah, there's a big generation of hunters that are kind of going to move on and hand over the trade to hopefully a lot of new hunters. I think it's growing, the amount of hunters again. But like you said, we're not the same. I think that there's the older generation and the younger generation, we're kind of doing it for the same overall reason, but each group has a different discussion and a different narrative in a sense. And I don't think one is right or wrong, but it's just kind of cool to see how it's evolving again and kind of coming back. And Mike and I are kind of an example of it, I guess, but focusing on the food, focusing on the fitness, focusing on all those kind of aspects. And it's definitely reaching the masses and the public, and it's starting to click again. So it's cool to see.
Yeah, definitely. With the courses and the workshops and stuff you're doing, what do those look like?
I do like your hunter certification course, like the core in BC, and then we do the firearm certification course. That's the basic stuff. Then that just sort of runs on a monthly basis. And but the fun ones I do a butchering workshop.
Okay, nice.
Which is lots of fun. So we bring in a couple of pigs and we cut them up, and I show people how to quarter it and break it down as if I was quartering an animal in the field, and then I partner with my buddy Uli from Sumas Meats down in Abbotsford, and he cuts it into what you would have your butcher do for you, or you could do it yourself and get it prepped for the freezer. So that's a lot of fun. It's super hands-on, and like, I think one of the things, well, Mike, you said you packed your buck out of the woods there, and like, to a lot of people, that's a big barrier to getting off the roads and getting, and actually getting out in the woods is that
for sure.
if they kill something, like, what are they going to do with it? There's the perceived barrier of gutting it. That's one thing. But then the next step is how are you going to get it back to the truck? And it's a relatively easy process to cut it into manageable size pieces and then pack it up, throw it in your backpack and pack it out of the woods. Like it's actually, once you get good at it, take you an hour and you're on your way. And I've started just, I still drag a few deer back to the truck, but I'm almost apt to just like, well, I got to cut it up anyways at some point. So I might as well
get started.
So just cut it up, and it just, you throw 80 pounds in your backpack and it's just an easy walk back to the truck. It's kind of nice. So, so anyways, so we teach people how to do that. That's a fun one. We do this one that's, that I just did this past weekend, and it's kind of one of the founding things that we started was called the Hunter Field Skills Workshop. So we do like a 3-day workshop at a friend's ranch over on the Bonaparte Plateau. Singing Lands Ranch is a beautiful piece of property that's kind of covered in deer. So they don't actually ranch it with any cows, so it's got this like super lush, beautiful natural grassland that's like got lots of deer crawling around. So we do kind of almost like a mock hunting camp. So we bring people there, we put them up in cabins, we feed them super well, and then we take them out and we show them how to still hunt, and we show them how to track animals, we show them how to look for good habitat, and then
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's just like, how to orienteer, and there's all those founding pieces that I think are essential to kind of, all the things you need to kind of feel comfortable and confident going hunting. Yeah. We do like logging road navigation and how to choose a spot to go hunting, and we do some shooting, and then we bring an animal in and we butcher it up. We usually bring a sheep in and skin it and butcher it and then cook it over a fire. So
nice.
So that's fun. So that's a cool, like, it's fun because everybody, that you bring 12 people in, and then it's great for those people because they meet 12 other brand new hunters. So out of every workshop we do, we've got like that becomes their hunting community. Right. So they've all got their own Facebook group. So years later, they're like, oh yeah, so we went up to Spatsizi. We had a group actually take a moose, five or six of the guys went up and got a couple of caribou and a moose out of Spatsizi. Nice. And that's just like, that was kind of cool. It's like, well, that's pretty cool. That was like year one of our hunter field skills, and that crew ended up what I think is the epitome. Like, that's like
totally,
that's if you can find your way to Spatsizi Park and hang out there for 10 days and come home with fill your freezer, that's a pretty great experience. So
totally, yeah.
So like glad to be part of that. So yeah,
cool.
That is that like a weekend thing you do up there for a couple of days, or? Yeah,
we do it once or twice a year. It's I'm slowing down a little bit just because it's quite a bit of work, and it's a ton of fun, but it's I gotta kind of balance things out.
Yeah, make the time for it. Yeah, I could imagine there's a lot of planning involved, something like that.
Yeah, but it's fun, and I'll probably do one a year, probably maybe two, and
very cool.
Yeah, it's just it's a ton of fun, and people get into it. So yeah.
Awesome. I'd imagine that's super valuable because it's one thing to just sit in a classroom or watch some YouTube videos from home, but to actually kind of get out there and be crawling around in the bush a little bit and seeing some deer, and you get like real experience, even though you're not taking an animal on that farm, but you're seeing stuff and you're getting to pretend that it's happening. So that translates well into actually going out and seeing something, so you don't shit your pants the first time you see a deer out there and you don't know what to do. And
yeah, for sure.
And
I actually left on the best part. I mean, the best part is I bring in some of my hunting mentors. So I bring in Jeff and Larry, and Pete will sometimes show up, and these guys are like these amazing guys that have hunted all around the province of BC and have just so much knowledge and are great charismatic storytellers.
Right.
And just for these folks who are like they get both the sort of a kind of a technical approach to learning hunting for myself and Selena and Rob, and then they get this like charismatic elder who can just sit back and just tell the stories and kind of put things in perspective, and it's works really well, because I think it's kind of gives you what I think is so magical about hunting is you do so much of hunting is knowledge and mentorship, and that's hard to come by, right?
Yeah.
And so build that in a little bit. I think it's important.
That's awesome.
Yeah, where were you when we needed you?
It's funny. I was there. You should have just Googled "learn to hunt," man. You would have found me.
Yeah, I think we Googled that a couple times. We ended up finding Ranella, and he was kind of like a bit of a gateway for us, but it was kind of based on the cooking aspect. But you guys have cooking courses too, right? Or sausage making?
Yeah, we do sausage making. That's a fun one. We do, and that's like that's sort of one of those social things, right? Like, I think it's important to, big part of my upbringing was like, when my dad would bring home moose, and then all our friends would come over and we'd butcher it, and then 2 weeks later we'd come back over and we'd have a big sausage making party,
Yeah.
and we stuff a bunch of sausage, they drink a bunch of wine and hang out, and we eat, and
Yep.
So that tradition has been part of my, so when I went to university, like I would shoot a moose or an elk or deer or whatever, and then I'd invite all my friends over to go buy some cheap pork from Save On Foods or whatever, or Superstore. And I'd take advantage of all my friends who are like, poor starving students, and I'd like get them on the crank and the sausage crankers and like grinding meat, and we'd stuff a bunch of sausage and drink a bunch of wine, and it was cool because everybody would help out for an afternoon, and they'd all go home with a pile of sausage, and
Nice.
it was just a fun way to like,
It's a ton of fun, man.
celebrate and share share that harvest, right?
Yeah.
So to me, that's more of a tradition thing, and trying to share that tradition and tell that story to people, and they get into it. It's kind of remember this is like this is incredible wealth that you have if you take an animal, and how do you share it with your friends, and that's just an important part of it, right?
Yeah, definitely, man.
Yeah.
It's just one more way to connect with what you're eating, especially like if those guys, they get to bring that meat home with them too. I think they're probably even more excited about it and get to share that with friends and stuff like that, and let them know that they made them and what's in them, and all that. So,
well, you think you guys were doing some sausage making?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've done it a few times. We learned not to do 70-pound batches. I mean, if you want to really get fancy with them and make sure they're perfect, it's nice to do 5-10-pound batches. But I mean, I don't know, I've talked about work a couple of times, just having conversations at work and engaging people, and they seem engaged. But another example, I was just in Vancouver for work, and we have an office there, and one of the girls brought in some moose pepperoni. So, I mean, I don't know how many bags of moose pepperoni were in that downtown Vancouver office, but it was kind of cool to have that there, and everybody was trying it and saying it was really good. And yeah, I don't know. I think once the discussion happens, it's not common that people shy away from it. I think it's just, I don't know. Everybody seems pretty open to it. I never really have an experience where someone, freaks out and starts going anti-hunting on you. It's more just they're curious.
Oh yeah, if you can cook for people, I mean, it just sort of changes the dialogue. Like,
the food is.
Yeah, that's my thing. Like I just cook for all my friends and stuff, and I think that's how I've influenced my community, my immediate community of have really created a lot of people who are really sympathetic for hunting and supportive of hunting, and that's sort of where Eat Wild started. Is that just feeding people? You hang out with enough artists and people that work for NGOs, they're starving.
I brought up a bunch of my pepperoni and stuff. Mike's like, I don't know if you should bring that out for the Christmas parties because everybody's going to eat it all.
It's going to be gone.
I'm like, well, I kind of just want to bring it up just so I can, invite these people to taste this stuff and kind of break down that wall. And then all my meat disappeared, but no, it was good. It's just fun to see. Yeah. It's fun to see people enjoying it, right?
Yeah, I think people are ready to have that conversation about it now too, which is great. Like you can show up now and you can take it, bring an elk loin to a party and slice it up and a little horseradish and talk about it, and like people are ready to have that conversation. Yeah, I think like 10, 15 years ago, you'd have to in some communities you could do it, but it's really cool. You can do that anywhere now. You could walk into any party in Vancouver and be like, elk loin, and everybody be like, "Woo, cool."
It's all the I don't know. It's the foodie like MasterChef and Chopped and like that whole culture of the TV shows. Yeah, and then especially in Vancouver, you guys have so many good restaurants, and everybody's trying to find the newest, greatest thing, right? So it seems like people are pretty open on the food aspect, so that's awesome. Yeah,
I think it's our real gateway. And when we're telling our story about, I think I think I listened to your last podcast with Yankee or
Adam Yankee.
Adam Yankee, yeah.
Yep.
And we're just talking about like how do we tell a story about what hunters are all about now, and how do we sort of engage people and create a dialogue that's maybe not just about like like hunting is for wildlife conservation and we're wildlife managers. Okay, that's all cool and all, but and that's totally a valid part of what we do, and it's part of what hunting's all about. But really, the story that I think we can get to resonate with people is about food, and it's about community, and it's about adventure, and it's about the connecting with nature, and those are things that really that story is being like people are buying that story right now and understanding it, and they're coming on board with us as hunters, and I think that's okay. That's cool. We should really be like something's working here for us, so we should really stick to this.
Yeah, we should. Yeah.
That's the easier step, right? I think the conservation thing is almost like the second step.
Yeah, it is difficult to like. It's how do you? It's really hard to explain that to people who who haven't studied conservation and wildlife management. It's like, okay, yeah, hunters play a role in it for sure, but then it's a huge backstory to kind of create the context before you can say, and therefore, hunters do this, then it helps sustain wildlife populations and we contribute financially. Like, it's super important that we all understand that. But if we're telling a story and we're trying to get the general public to understand what we do, it's about food and it's about being foodies. It's about people buy that and they understand it and they get into it, and we can share that story and we can share it through food.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. We were doing these workshops, we do like do a couple things that are fun, but we do like a wild game banquet. When we do like a first buck banquet. So anybody that's harvested their first animal, and that's been part of the Eat Wild community, they get to come over for dinner. So we have this, and everybody brings a little bit of their harvest, and they come sit around. We have this like long table dinner, and everybody shares a bit of their game, and I do a few mains and a couple elk roasts, and then everybody goes around the table and they share their story about their first hunt. It's kind of
awesome,
kind of fun. It's like have a supportive environment. So it's, all these folks here. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. So that's the first buck banquet. So you guys can come. You guys are
nice.
Especially got your first buck now. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
sounds like a good idea.
Yeah,
but we used to do like a Dine on Eat Wild party, which was just when we were starting out. We did like a fundraiser dinner where I'd serve wild game and I'd serve like fish and whatever that was in my freezer, and then I'd basically ask people for a donation and donate it back to the Nature Trust of BC. And but it was a great way to bring people together and a lot of people who were just like kind of interested in what hunting's all about to come and have a meal that's been well prepared. And as you guys know, like there's not every deer comes to the table in perfect condition, and it's not always cooked perfectly. And if you overcook any game roast, it's often quite dry or whatever.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
So a lot of people had really negative experiences with eating wild game, and so try to dispense some of those negative connotations. Anyways, just to have a dinner party and talk about game and talk about how all these animals got to the table, and just create a forum for people to come and eat. And those are really fun, and had some really interesting people and had some interesting coverage on them when we first started doing those. So
yeah, it's something that we've been talking about doing here with Adam Yonke and Chris Barker and stuff like that. Just an idea we keep tossing around about having some kind of event that brings all kinds of people together with food, because it's the easiest way to break down those barriers and making a full night out of it and share stories. Exactly what you're talking about, because I think that's the stuff that makes all the difference. So we got to make something like that happen here for sure.
Well, and you guys got the wineries to partner with.
Exactly.
Too, and there's a lot of people would be interested in working with you on it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you can't go wrong with some good wine, and we got lots of good local beer makers and stuff here too, and good chefs. So we've got all the right ingredients to do it.
Yeah, you just got to find the time and energy.
I know, that's the tricky part.
Yeah, that's when you introduce food into it too, it's like a little extra stress because it's you're serving food to people. And like, oh, geez, you want to make sure everything goes right.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially if it's I think exactly what you were just saying there is like sometimes that's been somebody's first introduction to wild game, and it's an overcooked roast or whatever it is, or
old Amelia that was shot on like November 20th.
Yeah, exactly. That's not. You should keep that one at the bottom of the freezer and keep that for yourself, and give your guests the good stuff so they get a good first experience with it. But yeah, I think that's why some people shy away from it. They've just had a bad first experience with wild game, and
they have that myth in their head, though. They a lot of them are bringing the myth of this is going to taste gamey.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, if you overcook it, it kind of brings the gaminess out. So try to keep it a little on the medium rare side, and hopefully they're willing to try it. Hopefully they kind of break down that wall if they have it
for sure
in their mind going into it. But
we've done a few nights now where we've had elk burgers and invite a bunch of people over, which is a pretty easy thing to cook.
Yeah,
and it's a great way to introduce wild game to folks as well. So those have gone over well and have been a lot of fun.
Yep.
And that
we've said this a couple times now, but that grind, just the elk grind, having that in the freezer is so useful and convenient. But it's a good method to kind of serve people, right? Whether it's elk tacos or elk
Yeah, I was
lasagna.
going to say the elk tacos, like that goes a long way. Like you can feed a lot of people with elk tacos.
Yeah.
You try cut off a chunk of neck or shank and just do pulled elk tacos. It just goes a long way, and people just are die for it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So you've launched a podcast just recently here. I didn't notice this until like last week, and you got a whole whack episodes up there and stuff like that. What inspired you to get that going? Just because all these conversations are already happening, and
yeah, I think where I kind of want to go with it. I mean, I'm taking a bit of a pause on it. I was just talking to you, talking to you guys before we were on here, just about getting that audio quality up to a place where I'm looking around your studio, you get these nice mics, the mixing board.
I know everybody's always jealous. They're like, what the fuck? How these guys getting that audio?
These guys are huge, man. You guys must be paying all the bills of your podcast, I'm sure.
Yeah. Snare drum and tables.
Yeah, totally. No, I want to get. I started out with. I was just trying to use my MacBook Pro to get the audio right, and I just struggled a little bit, and so I bought a little bit more equipment. And I'm gonna retake. I got a couple buddies that are sound engineers as well, so I'll get some support to get the audio up to standard because, I have really interesting people that are come and go in my life that I have these opportunities to have conversations with, and I just stick a microphone in front of them and capture those conversations around, particularly around learning to hunt and building the knowledge around hunting in British Columbia specifically. And the part that I kind of want to get into is like just getting some of those mentors on, like some of those guys who just have so much knowledge and are just these charismatic storytellers I was talking about, and just sharing that knowledge with our community of young hunters that maybe don't have, uncles and dads and grandpas and grandmas that hunted and can tell those stories. So, so I kind of want to do that and just use it as a way to have conversations with interesting people and maybe focus, because you have those conversations, but it's actually been fun when I have had a couple of my guests on it or just had a bullshit with a friend. Like it just kind of focuses the conversation, and it's kind of nice because I kind of find it difficult to even find time to have a focused conversation. And
it's easy to get distracted with everything else.
And I really noticed, like I follow you guys and I follow Renella's podcast, and I'm like, what's cool about it? It's like it just focuses you to sit down, have a beer with people you are interested in hanging with, and having a conversation. So, and I just don't do enough of that right now in my life. I just am a bit too busy, and I miss on that. So, so I think I'll use it as a tool, and my latest effort here is that we launched the Eat Wild hunting app.
Okay. I got to check that out.
Yeah, you got to download it, and it's going to be available for. We got it available for iPhones now, but then it'll be available for Androids here in probably this week sometime.
Oh, cool.
So that's cool. And anyways, that's my huge moneymaker right now. I think
Nice. What's the functionality that you have?
The main concept is just being able to take some of the. So I got a bunch of YouTube videos on just like how to do stuff.
Yeah.
And most, some of them are better than others in terms of just depending on who I'm hunting with at the time. So happen to hunt with a buddy that makes films for some of the bigger outdoor gigs like Arc'teryx and some mountain bike companies and stuff. And if I'm hunting with him and we shoot a deer or something, or then he's got a good camera, so we'll do a little like how to gut a deer, how to debone a deer, how to hang a deer in a tree. We just did that last week, and so anyways, just how to do stuff. And if I'm hunting with somebody like Jeff Forcefield, who's like whatever 68 years old, and try to get him to hold the iPhone in place while I talk about something.
Nice.
So anyways, but some of them have turned out pretty good, and I think there's a lot of good knowledge there for folks who are trying to figure this stuff out. Yeah. And so the app basically just allows you to download some of those key videos that you think you might want. So like how to pick up a blood trail, and how to gut a deer, and some of the essentials you might want to have when you're on the hill, and you're like, oh shoot, I got an animal, or I shot an animal, can't find it, and just to have that mentor in your pocket that you wish you had, but at least you can bring up your phone and hit the how to find a deer after the shot video, and it's you could pre-download them all before you go and have access to them. And
that's awesome. Yeah, because when I got my first buck, which was that one that's up on the wall there, I was by myself and kind of like, oh shit, like what's next here? So I put the phone on speakerphone. I called Kelly at work and like, hey man, can you look up a few things for me here and just guide me through some of the, like I want to do the gutless method for the first time up there. it was just checking in with him to see if I was doing it right and all that kind of stuff. So to have that on an app would have been perfect. So you can just sort of double check and just confirm that the approach you're taking is correct, hopefully, and just gives you, again, that little extra bit of confidence that you've got something to guide you through it if it's your first time, because it's certainly intimidating.
Yeah, well, even like, I think about the process that you do, like after you shoot an animal, like that. I mean, you're on all the emotions you're feeling, the excitement you're feeling. It's like kind of an intense moment, and the next thing you got to do is go find this animal that you've shot, and hopefully you're going to recover. But there's actually a fairly mathematical process that you can follow, or step by step thing you can do to increase your odds of actually recovering an animal, and it starts with basically flagging you start out by flagging where you shot from, and then take a bearing to where the animal was standing when you shot it, and then eventually give yourself some time, maybe wait half an hour before you wander over there, but all those steps that you got to take that I think are essential to maximizing your chances of recovering the animal, and just having someone coach you through all that, I think that could be super helpful. And then you see a lot of stuff too. Like I see a lot of I don't want to say mistakes, but there's a lot of different ways of doing it, right?
Right.
And it depends who you learn from. And I sometimes look at stuff like, that's kind of it's unfortunate. You just lost like 2 pounds of meat doing that,
Right. Right.
And I mean that's fine. I mean you want to cut the brisket and you want to cut through the pelvis, that's fine. But when you trim it all up at the end of the day, it's you lost a little extra meat, right?
Yeah.
So there's lots of different ways of doing it, but. So hopefully that the app will be will create a little bit of a tool for new hunters to feel more confident.
For sure.
I wrote this field guide a few years back too that sort of breaks down some of the, some orienteering concepts and how to hunt concepts that I my sort of guide to still hunting and my guide to breaking down an elk and stuff like that. So
cool.
So that's available on this in PDF form, and
Nice.
Actually the coolest part is that we have your trip list. So if you have a what's in your pack list is on there, so then you just can go on your app and click all the stuff and make sure you've got your day hunting kit or your truck kit, whatever you'd have in your truck, and so you can just help with planning a little bit. So
cool.
So and it's like it's only 2 weeks old, so basically we're looking for new ideas to build into it, and we'll get feedback from folks as we go, and it's free, so it's not like it's you can pay $5 and that gives you the functionality to download the videos and take them with you. So that's how I'm going to get rich.
There
that's
you
my
go.
plan.
Nice.
So
Sweet.
Cool. We'll check it out.
Yeah.
I was actually watching a couple of your videos today about what was it? I click on the firearms, because you have PAL and core courses through your programs too, right? So, but I was looking at the firearms one, and that's a question we always get to with new hunters is, how do you get involved and learn and get your license and all that? And then what kind of rifle are you going to buy? And you talk about the calibers. Totally agree with the whole like 308 and 7mm 08 being maybe good starter calibers for guys, and girls. But, and then you talked about the stainless versus the blued and the wood versus synthetic and all that. So Mike and I had a similar conversation like that on the podcast too, but, yeah, it's just an example, I guess, of the kind of stuff you're putting out there. So people should check that out if they're looking at firearms and calibers and all that. That's always a super common question.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Some very useful videos up there for sure.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's fun. I mean, part of it is because I do a lot of education too, right? Or like I teach classes, and that's like the most common thing people ask me. So I save myself the conversation and just do
Get it out there.
Yeah. So maybe that's good. The podcast too would be good because you're gonna have these conversations and you can direct people to that database of information that's been shared with and hopefully with somebody that's like an authority on it, right? So
100%.
Yeah, for sure. Very cool. I was looking through some of your podcasts there, and you were up north as well and documenting some of your trips up. Did you make it up there twice this year? Or? Nice. How did it go? Similar to our trip, or?
I've had. It's funny. So this year I manage parks for a living. I manage provincial parks.
Oh, nice.
That's my real job. And I've been doing that since I was a kid. It's great. It's a good gig, and I've been doing. Yeah, I love it. And I've been able to do this project on the side for the most part, and still kind of maintain some balance. But this year, coming into this year, I turned 40, and I was like, am I really going to ride it out as in government and managing, doing the BC Parks things forever? and I think I might. So part of that, I was like, I went to my boss. I need to take a little break just to like explore a couple things and just have a bit of a break mid career.
Yeah.
And so I got a 5-month leave supported, and so I started calling it my hunting sabbatical.
Nice.
Go up north and goof around. So but it's been kind of a bust. It's kind of funny because like anyways, we went up north and hunted sheep for 12 days, and we flew into a spot in basically the upper end of the Muskwa, and like we didn't see a sheep until day 8.
Oh, wow.
I think we covered 50 kilometers of like country, and like and I'm pretty used to, like, I hunt off the Alaska Highway a fair bit, and I mean, if you haven't seen a sheep within half an hour, you're not looking in the right place, you know?
Right.
So it was a bit trying, and ended up, we finally found some sheep, and we found more hunters than sheep, and once we finally found a few sheep, and so that was a bit of a bust, but it was actually probably one of the cooler trips I've done, because we just hiked and just like covered just so many cool places, and just had a great partner too. My buddy Rick is a bit of a new hunter, but a really experienced outdoorsman. So,
cool.
So that was just experience, just kind of hanging with a guy that just really knew his way around the mountains was a lot of fun too. So it's a really low stress trip, and it was awesome, beautiful. So, but that was bust as far as like, even seeing sheep, let alone, looking at rams, let alone killing a ram. So
What time of year was that?
that was opening day.
Okay.
So it's August 1st.
Nice.
And then we went, then we've been planning this adventure to drift one of the rivers up north, and we with my sort of elk hunting crew, we took a year off our favorite spot, and we decided we were going to put together rafts. So we bought rafts and put frames together and researched how to run rivers, and kind of got all geared up and did a bunch of research, and even hired a guide to kind of train us up a little bit and do a bit of a training weekend with us. And so we were feeling pretty confident, flew into the upper reaches of this river, this Northern Rocky Mountain River, and then we drifted out back to the Alaska Highway, and that was pretty cool. But it was like 27 degrees on average every day.
Okay, wow.
So I saw an elk, called an elk in like on day 2, and thank God I didn't actually. I was trying to call it up and over this ridge so I could pack it down to where our camp was.
Yeah.
He was kind of upriver from us where he ended up, and so I was calling him up this ridge, and if I could just get him to come up like another like 500 feet of elevation, not even 500 feet of distance, and get him to the crest of the ridge, I was pretty sure I could shoot him there, and my buddies wouldn't give me shit about shooting him, because I've sort of notoriously shot a lot of elk in places that my buddies have had to pack them out of, and they're not as young and spry as they once were, so they're kind of grumbly about when I shoot an elk. Well, yeah, so anyways, I was like, okay, well, if he comes up to this ridge and it's all downhill, I'll shoot him, and then I don't think they'll give me shit about shooting this elk. Anyways, the elk got kind of hung up just below me, and it didn't quite break over the ridge, so that's all right. It was a good thing, because that elk would have melted if I shot it, because the weather was ruthless. It didn't let up. It was just so hot. So we ended up drifting for 8 days down the river. It was super fun, the whole drifting part, but the notable lack of elk hanging out, just whether it was the area, certainly a learning process, and
You're all stuck in the timber, maybe.
Yeah.
Just hiding out.
yeah. So yeah, those are like I had those 2 big trips, and that was a big part of it. And then I don't know what I did for September. I think I went to Spain. That was fun.
Nice.
Somebody
That's where Mike was.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
We were kind of all over. We started in Madrid, and then we headed over to Portugal and did that whole thing, and then went southern tip of Portugal and then back into Spain and through a bunch of areas in there. So
Nice.
I hopped all over. Yeah, it was awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was. I had a nice time there too. It was beautiful. We were there for the Catalonia referendum.
Right.
So we were in Barcelona. I was all going down. So
wow.
things went a little sideways
I
on
bet.
us. So yeah, but it was a pretty cool time to be there too, because the spirits were pretty intense and pretty high. But that was cool. A little bit of history in the making.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So that was cool. But no, and then anyway, so then the rest of my so I'm 0 for 2. Like the first year I haven't killed an elk in like 15 years or something like that. So that was so I was like feeling I'm still feeling pretty hungry right now, because I haven't actually killed anything this year. So unfortunately my buddy Larry went and he was in a bit of a freezer crisis. last week. So he called me up and said, he had a moose he didn't have a place for. So I said, well, I got a freezer on the back porch. You can plug it in and put a moose in there if you want. So,
Nice.
so yeah. So I said, well, why don't you just pay for some of the butchering and you can keep the moose? I'm like, oh, that sounds great.
Deal.
Yeah. I got some fish for you. We're good.
Nice.
So that worked out. So I'm not hunting hungry anymore, but I was in a panic station. I was panicking there without how are you gonna host a sausage party if you don't got no elk, you know?
I know we were
Yeah.
having the same feelings up until yesterday. But like the pressure of it, man, it messes with your head and you're out there and you're not seeing anything. It gets frustrating but things change in a matter of seconds, man. It's pretty crazy. So
Yeah, you always have to just trust that where you think that deer's standing, there's probably one standing there.
yeah.
Because you kind of get this mentality that I haven't seen anything for like last 10 times. I'm never going to see anything. And you kind of half-ass a glass and then you're just never going to see anything. But if you got to hang on to that motivation and that trust that there's going to be that deer there and then you'll see one day.
Yeah.
But,
I talk about this with new hunters. What I'm doing right now, the reason why I'm here is I started this next project is called Eat Wild Supported Hunts, and I'm actually guiding like newbie hunters, people who've never hunted before, and they're willing to buck up enough to make it worthwhile to come hang out with me for 3 days, and we're focusing on whitetail doe hunts. So it's
Perfect.
it'd be a relatively easy hunt. Well, actually, it hasn't been that easy because there's still whitetail does and they're pretty wily,
Right.
especially when you're starting from square one. So you're kind of like starting from the beginning and learning that whole process. But so anyways, that's why I'm hanging out here. Is I'm trying to doing this new effort, and part of what I'm doing is I'm just like walking people through like how do I still hunt? Like what type of ridge am I looking for? What type of forest cover am I looking for to that fits into my style of hunting? And I like to walk a lot. I probably walk more than I should if you're hunting whitetails in particular.
Yeah.
But as you're still hunting along and you're kind of sneaking along a ridge line or on a side hill, I have this sort of mantra that I almost repeat, almost like I kind of try to fall into almost a sense of meditation. Like you just kind of like sneak along the hill and try to be as quiet as you possibly can and sneak from tree to tree. And the mantra is basically just like, if I just continue to do this, a deer will appear.
Right.
And as I fall into that state, you're talking like Kelly, they're just about, you just stop, you kind of questioning yourself, whether this is worthwhile, it's going to work, or maybe you should do something else. And I just continue to follow that mantra because I was saying, if I just continue to follow these steps, a deer will appear. And I just continue to walk and walk and walk. And sometimes I walk for a day, sometimes I walk for 10 days, but eventually a deer will present itself because it's how I know to hunt deer. And then if you were to kind of reverse all, if you were to like jump back in time, the reason why I'm on that ridge and hunting that way is because I've done a shit ton of research on why that's a good spot. And I've hunted it for 20 years and I know that's a good spot and there's deer there and they like to feed in these areas and I have the best vantage if I hunt it this way. And so all those factors sort of point me in the direction to continue to hunt that way. But it's easy to forget about that when you're walking on the hill for an hour and a half and you haven't seen nothing.
Yeah.
It's easy your brain starts to convince you that this isn't a good idea and you should go and reinvent the wheel when you're like halfway through your hunt. But I fight that off through sort of this sort of process of having a bit of a mantra. Kind of walking.
Yeah.
Now maybe that sounds a bit weird, but
No,
anyways.
I think that's a good way to do it. Yeah.
It's what, but like, I don't know, especially when you're trying to walk slow and I always think about trying to walk like the animal.
Yeah.
So like take a few steps and then stop and I'll look around for a while and then I'll take a few more steps. Like if I think I'm actually within a proximity of something. I spooked a couple whitetails a week ago, but, yeah, I don't know. I mean, your brain, like you said, it starts getting ahead of you and you kind of start trying to, I relate it to fishing too. Like you throw a fly or something out there and you kind of give it 5 or 10 minutes. You're like, it's not working. You just pull it up, throw something else out there and you keep kind of doing that. But there's a fine line between like committing to your thought because you had that thought for a reason and then even hanging on to that thought for too long, right? Like sometimes you do have to switch it up. So it's like I think with
balance,
experience,
yeah.
you find where that balance is, and it changes by the day. It kind of depends on the situation.
Yeah,
But
totally.
you can't really teach that to someone. And I think everyone has their own threshold. But
Yeah, well, that's exactly. So one of the new hunters I was with last week, she was like, "So when do you decide that you're like?" I say, "Always start with the plan." So you start with a plan, and that's based on some hypothesis of what why you think this is a good idea to go do this. And then she's like, "Well, when do you change your plan?" And I'm like, "Well, if one of the factors that I built the plan on has changed, so." If I show up there and there's another vehicle parked there, obviously that changes the factor, because that's all of a sudden we don't want to disturb somebody else's hunt, and also it means there's more pressure and all the factors have changed, right? So, or if you see an ATV blow through your spot or something like that when you're up there, or you see wolf sign or something like that. It's always there's lots of things that can affect why you'd change or do something different. Yeah, for sure. So, but yeah, you have to switch it up sometimes. But
for sure.
yeah, have you guys started hunting whitetails?
No. We've both
Well, it's kind of what we started
whitetail
doing.
does, yeah, which is like what you're doing is a great way to get into it, but sort of transferred more into mule deer hunting and that. So, but whitetail is something I think we need to sit back and maybe attempt a little bit more, just because it's a different style of hunting between that and mule deer, and we can only pull one mule deer each out of here. So, if we tag out early on a season, then it's kind of our only option unless we go into a different region. But so, yeah.
I think too, we're a little bit lucky to have some fun mule deer habitat to play around in, and it's even like Summerland and Merritt and like all these places that kind of have some open grassland. I just kind of like that style of hunting, and the whitetail it's challenging. They're so spooky, and they like the bushy areas, and you
Yeah.
And
Well, they don't all like the bushy areas. I mean, there's before I go down that road, but I was just going to say that you guys, one of the reasons why I'm sort of selling people on this whitetail doe hunt idea, like I'll teach you how to hunt whitetails, and then that way you can take that knowledge and transfer it to any species in BC, because it's kind of your foundation. If you can sneak around and sneak up on a whitetail, well, then you can sneak up on anything in BC, So if you take those principles and apply them, so that's sort of the what I've sort of trying to sell people on the wild supported hunt, and but for you guys, you live near some great habitat and some nice spots to hunt whitetails, and they don't all live. I mean, for sure, way more whitetails live in shitty, thick, ugly forests that you can't walk around in, and you're probably best to just like sit around and wait for one to walk by you in a tree stand or a ground blind. But there are lots of places where beautiful, nice fir forest or mature forest around here that you can wander around, and there'll be whitetails there.
Right.
And it's just a matter of, figuring out where those spots are, and then kind of tuning up your stock and stills to get a look at them before they bolt. But we snuck up on a couple of does this morning, and like as nice a forest as you're going to find around here, and had two does staring at us. And my hunter there, Keith, he had a good look at them and went through the process of, it took this process was maybe a little bit too long for whitetail, but but it was still a great learning moment, right? So sure. Lots of fun.
So like with mule deer, I think we kind of know what to look for, like the broken ground and kind of like your sage or your bitter brush, and like they kind of like there's certain areas you kind of know them when you see them. But with whitetail, like what's the I kind of see them everywhere, but like, is there a certain area or certain foliage that you're looking for with whitetail in particular, or is it just experience in certain areas that you start realizing where their travel corridors are and all that kind of stuff?
No, I look for food, and two things. I actually look for huntable habitat. So if I like to walk, I still like to walk, and I look for what I do look for is like ridges. That are typically a ridge is a little bit more open than say the forest below it. So I can kind of hunt the ridge and sit on, like, sneak along the ridge, just don't skyline yourself, just to be below the ridge line, and then sort of side hill along and wander from tree to tree, and then look down, through what is relatively open forest. So when I say open forest, it's like it's thick enough that a white-tailed deer is comfortable, but open enough that I can still see through it a little bit. I can see maybe 80 yards through, through lanes, I guess. And so I kind of look for what is huntable yet still comfortable for a white-tailed deer to be comfortable wandering around in.
Okay.
And then, so that's the first thing. I look for what's huntable, and then I look for the ground cover to see what's growing there. And white-tailed deer love like snowberry. That's super common here, and they love snowberry. Wintergreen is another one I look for. Rose hips, and anything that's bushy. I mean, they're browsers, right? So any of those are like low brush browsers, and then they like anywhere that's like if you'll see. We're hunting over across the lake here. There's spots where like it looks like beautiful forest, and you wander through it. There's no sign of deer, no tracks. You go to the other aspect of the mountain, which is the same forest, but if you look at the ground cover, all of a sudden there's just way more shrubbery on the ground, and it's like those things I just talked about. Oregon grape, I think. I don't know if they eat Oregon grape, but I think it's just maybe one of those species that grows where I find a lot of deer.
Oh, okay.
And then did I say wintergreen? It's just a little green thing that comes up, and it's usually around fir.
Okay.
So maybe it's me. I'm just attracted to fir forest, and then those are probably the species that grow under the fir forest, and that way I find that the fir is sort of typically they grow and not super dense in some places. So anyways, that's what I look for, and their whitetails are very territorial, so they'll just hang out in one spot. So
yeah.
Like where I've been hunting with my clients over, like I said, like we kind of bumped into the same group of does a few times now, and so far out of the 3 groups of people I've taken through there, no one's been able to kind of get it together in time to get a crack at them. But it's kind of neat that I can kind of walk them through this process and see, okay, we hunt over here and we get advantage over an area that we. One of the things I like to do is like with any hunting, but the more country you can see without the country seeing you. So if you can sneak up over a ridge and look down the other side, like you haven't screwed up anything, you can peer over it. It's sort of fresh country. So I do the same thing as I'm working a ridge. I just kind of come along the ridge, and as you work your way along, and there's usually bumps and humps, and every time you kind of climb up to a new ridge crest, you're looking down into a gully and then over to a bank on the other side. Well, that feature you haven't screwed it up yet. You haven't walked through it. So if you just kind of sneak up to where you got some vantage over it, and then spend some time with your binoculars, just working that little piece of habitat. And I mean, you're looking through your binoculars at 30 yards from you to 80 yards, and you're just working through all of it. And you're looking for deer bedded down. You're looking for deer hanging out in the thicker stuff, and eventually you'll just see them. They're there. So it's been fun. So I've got this one spot where I've been like, I explain my process, and then I walk up the little ridge, and then I peek over the ridge line. And I'm like, hey, just make sure when you peek over, you got some cover. You're not silhouetted. You got a tree to lean on, so you got something to hold up your binoculars, and then you just peer down into this like basin below you, and every time there's been deer standing down there, it's been great. So it's like they're super territorial anyway. So if you know where some deer live, they'll always live there. Which
people
is
are
kind
gonna
of cool.
think they're robots or something.
Yeah, totally. I'm like, well, it's worked out. I mean, but I played out like I pretend I don't know they're there if I'm the guide, right? I kind of let it unfold, right? And then they're gonna hear this now. God damn it.
Yeah, I can edit that out.
Nice.
Nice. Well, that's pretty cool, man. I think I got to get going here pretty quickly, unfortunately. But yeah, it's sweet that you're in town here. You'll have to let us know ahead of time too if you're planning to come out here, because there's a whole bunch of guys that been asking Kelly and I to take them out, but we just don't have the time. So if you want to try and line some more guys up out here, we'll definitely try and push them your way and get them out there with you, because I think that's the perfect way to do it. So.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's been great to hang out with you guys, and I've been meaning to reach out for some time, just because I think I really appreciate what you guys are doing, and I think you got a great audience, and yeah, we should be buddies and keep in touch, and
for sure,
I'm sure there's some stuff we can collaborate on.
Yeah, for sure. Do you plan on coming out this way a bit more often then, or what's the?
Well, I mean, I've got a partnership with a guide outfitter in Kelowna.
Okay.
In Kelowna here, so we'll see how this season goes with the Eat Wild supported hunt concept. Like, it's fun and it's a ton of work though. Like I'm going from 4:30 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night.
Nice.
And it's I'm like, wow, geez, I'm sure that park ranger work sure seems good right now.
Yeah.
So we'll see what it looks like for next year. But I mean, I hunt out through here all the time. So I'm back. I've got all November off. So I'm hunting mule deer all November. I'm hunting whitetail. Sorry, I'm mule deer, whitetail, and then mule deer again. So I'll be through and hanging out. So
sweet.
Yeah, we should keep in touch. And
yeah, definitely.
I'm good friends with probably a lot of your buddies, like Jesse Zeman and a few of the biologists.
Yeah, Jesse's mentioned you a number of times.
Yeah. So yeah, there's some good folks that we all know in common. So
Cool.
yeah, we should have a hang.
We're always open for a beer here and there. So
yeah, let's go
make it
climb up.
happen.
Go climb up in the park and look at some old haunts there.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Before we go, website, social media, all that stuff. Where can people find you?
Yeah, sure. So eatwild.ca is my website. You can find everything there. And then if you want to go online, I'm on Instagram, and probably my best stuff is on the YouTube channel, Eat Wild Dylan on YouTube. And,
Cool.
And most importantly, yeah, go check out the app, and hopefully by the time this goes to air, the Android version will be available.
Yeah,
so.
we'll put up a link on the website so you guys can check that out too if you can't find it for some reason. But cool. This was a lot of fun. I wish we had more time, but we'll do it again sometime.
No, it's bedtime, man, right now. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're in your hunting gear. You came straight from the bush to the studio. So
Yeah, I was gonna put on something nice for you guys. I was skinny jeans. I was like, it's a hunting podcast. I can wear my
Exactly.
my
Yeah.
camo.
It's safe.
totally.
Awesome. Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks for coming in, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
man.
right on. Good to
Thanks
meet you
a lot.
guys.
Yeah. Cheers.
Yep.